Well, good evening and welcome to the Pointbreak Roundtable. My name is Tyler Riley, and this week my guests are a couple of juniors, which is insane. Aiden Graham and Jack Creel, which, Jack, we've talked about in the past, but you were actually one of the first people to ever meet me.
That's true.
It was like,
I remember that.
Were you in 7th grade at that time, or were you in 8th grade?
I think it was 8th, but I'm not sure.
I can't remember, but I was coming to visit Faith Bridge, and I had just accepted the job. I was coming to visit, and I remember going into one of Elevate's activities or whatever. And that's where we met, playing water kickball or something like that.
I think you're right. We were chilling in a pool in the lawn.
Yeah, exactly. Which it's crazy because now for both of y'all are at you're over the hump. This is it. This is you're juniors, and then you're gonna be seniors, and then you're gonna be grandparents before you even realize it. So, but I am incredibly proud of both of you before we get going. But our topic today is if I could go back. So if you could put yourself a long time ago, decades ago, into your freshman year, if you could go back to your freshman year, we'll open it with this. What advice would you give yourself?
I would give myself just to root myself in God and not people's opinions. I was very much an attention seeker as a freshman, and I liked what other people's opinions and their attention on me, and that caused me to do a lot of destructive things. And as I've learned over the course of the couple of years, I really need to root myself in God and know what He wants for me rather than what other people want for me, because in the end, being His steward and doing His will is what I'm here for. So that's probably what I go back and tell myself.
Yeah. When did you notice, or even what caused just that shift from just being, like you're saying at one point, you were just really, kind of, I guess, concerned with people's opinions, what they thought of you, their approval and stuff like that. When did that change for you? When did you notice that?
I don't have a specific point in when it changed, but when I just started rooting myself in the Word, coming to Pointbreak, coming to church, getting involved in a curious group and studying my Bible, I really started to see that change in myself and how I was rooted more in God rather than His opinion or other people's opinions.
Yeah, which is probably a very freeing step that I can definitely relate to. But Jack, what about you?
Oh gosh, I think one of the big things that I would do differently is just making sure I don't waste time with things and just using my time wisely. I think that's something I've especially grown in the past year mostly, but just looking back on freshman year, there were so many things I did that were just honestly wastes. And I feel in general, people should try to strive above that, but especially if you're a Christian, because if we believe that our life actually has more purpose than that, then we shouldn't waste our time just zoning out on Instagram or watching tons of Netflix or things like that are so easy to get sucked into, but one, really aren't productive to us and our own health. But other than that, it's definitely not living out our purposes in life. And I know that sounds weird and big and deep and things like that, but just junior year, especially looking forward, I think it's become really evident to me that there is a future beyond high school and that I want to be doing everything I can to prepare for that. And it's something you can start whenever you want. Freshman year, for sure, go for it. Just always preparing for your future, whether that be just in things like school or extracurriculars or whatever you do, or whether it just be in relationships and friendships and just your relationship with God. Just making sure you have that right, because life's probably about to get crazy. If you go off to school or whatever you do after high school, this is the time that you have to cement that relationship. And if you can get that right, then I think it will make everything a lot easier.
Yeah, which, I mean, even talking about just the idea of it being so easy to just waste away hours upon hours, it never gets less easy for that to happen. I am guilty of, there have been times it's just on an off day where I wake up and then I grab my phone and I'm on Instagram, and then all of a sudden it's 1 o'clock and I haven't gotten out of my bed and I've just been scrolling. It's crazy how much time just is gone when you can just be sucked into, yeah, whatever it is. Like you said, like whether it is like social media or just whatever, video games, it can just be so easy. Netflix, to just waste away so many hours. And those things in and of themselves like aren't bad.
Yeah.
But of course, when it gets to that point and it's just affecting so much else, then obviously it's like, okay, it's time to look at that. But I mean, yeah, even as you're saying that, and it never gets less easy to just get sucked into that. And so that is, I would echo that. That's just a really valuable lesson to learn, and that's just really good self awareness to be able to say like, okay, I I am as a 29-year-old, which don't tell anybody that, but as a 29-year-old, I'm like, I know this about myself. I can watch an entire season of a Netflix show in one day, and that can really detract from um, many other things that I'm called to do. What would you, just to kind of twist it a little bit, what would you do more of if you could go back?
Mm. I would spend more time playing sports.
Yeah.
I was really girly girl. Like I still am, but I really enjoy like running. I found my love for running, love for volleyball, and then recently golf. So I would just play more sports, try more things out. Probably also read my Bible more. It's kind of a standard answer, but it really is true. I found a love for just waking up and getting right into the word, putting on my worship music, just sets the tone for the whole day. And it feels really good just to be yourself in that, be yourself, and put yourself in God's hands just at the beginning of the day.
Yeah, that's good. I think there's a lot of individual things that I would have done more, but I think the biggest thing that I'd encourage other people to do as well is just to go ahead and do things. Like not wait till you have time, not wait till you graduate, and just start things now. Because I think all the most meaningful things that I participate in were things that it's really easy to push off. Whether it be just your relationship with Christ, you can always say, you know, I have my own time now. That's something I'll need later in life. Or whether it's just honestly school or whatever you want it to be. It can be really easy to push things off and say, I'll wait to do that till later. But I think the best thing and most beneficial to yourself, even though it's not easy a lot of the time, is to just go ahead and do things now. And I think one of the biggest ways that manifests itself really is just with relationships with other people. Because I know a lot of the time it can be easy to realize that like you want better relationships with people, whether it's like you had an argument with this person, you want to fix that, you want to go talk to them about it, but it's easy to just put it off. Choosing to not wait in that, I feel like can be really beneficial. Or whether it's you want to get closer with this person, but you haven't. Choosing to not put that off is where the most meaningful things come from relationships, is taking initiative to go ahead and start that right away. And I feel like that's something I would absolutely do more of, is just make sure I increase my time on those things and not waiting until I grow up to do things.
Mm-hmm. Which we were even talking about even beforehand, before we even started recording, that being even a lesson that you learned with just like, you know, how valuable you've seen it is to have just really deep friendships and really deep relationships um, with people, as opposed to just all of these. Like, could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're exactly right. That is what is more beneficial. Because I think the easy thing is to not pursue like any deeper intimacies in friendships. Just like have a lot of friends that you're surface level with. And that's the easy thing. And that's mostly, I feel like, what's promoted in our culture as well. But to do the contrary to that, to the opposite thing, is where you find more fulfillment. And I've learned that especially in the past few years. Being able to have like 4 or 5 friends that you are incredibly close with, that you can trust them with anything, that they know all of you, you know all of them. That gives you the most opportunity for growth in yourself. And it also just gives you the most meaningful relationship with them. And I think that's something that is put off, like I was talking about, because I think especially in the high school mindset, it's easy to connect with a lot of people but not have any deep connections. And like think of that something that you'll deal with later on in life, and that's just not true. That's something that should be dealt with now. But it is friendships like that are able to give you a more beneficial like friendship just because of your connection with them, but also on a deeper level because they have the ability to pour into you. They can talk to you, they can speak truth, they can say, hey, I've been noticing you've been doing this. What's up with that? Or, hey, you've been doing well with this. But you'll actually take them seriously because they know all of you and you trust them. You've given them a level of trust more than other people. And more than that, they have the opportunity to pour into you in a meaningful way. Like they can call out things you've been doing, or they can speak just Jesus' word into you, the word of God into you. Being able to do that is not something you have in surface level friendships, but you can have in deep ones, and it's by far more fulfilling.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of those things, and it's one of the big things that we talk about with Point Break, like community and learning what true, deep community is. And it really is having people who know you. You know them, but they also know you, right? If you are challenged, I guess, by somebody, or somebody points something out to you, and you really don't have a deep friendship with them, one of the most popular responses is like, you don't know me like that. And then all of a sudden when one of those friends brings something up to you, you're like, oh, you do know me like that. And all right, it's going to take some humility, but I trust you, because of the relationship that we've built, and it does become so valuable. I've people in my life who speak into me. Like, it's always important to have that. So yeah, to kind of wrap up our time, I'll ask one more question, which could tie into something you've already said, or it could be something completely different. But I especially want to kind of highlight the freshmen who are either watching or listening to the podcast right now. We talked about if you could go back and give advice to yourself as a freshman, but what piece of advice would you give our freshmen in general who are watching or listening to this right now?
Root yourself in God. It's been one of my big themes in life. Root yourself in God. Because not only does that help you build relationships, because he's the one who you're supposed to have a relationship with, you have to fix that relationship first before you could have others. But it's just such an important thing, and he'll always be there, like no matter what. So that's one of my big things, just root yourself in God.
I mean, I think you're definitely right. I'd say the same thing because it's always important to have that. I know it's easy to think as a freshman that I feel like you have a kind of a naive mindset, at least I did, of like, this is just how things are going to be. Everything's going to be the same. Nothing's going to get that crazy. And of course, 2020 has taught us otherwise of that. But just, there's going to be more times like this. There's going to be more crazy things happening. And the craziest things are always things that happen like on a personal level, just with you. And so getting close to God and doing it now is by far the most beneficial thing, not just because it helps your everyday life, but because when those times come, you'll wish you had found a relationship with him sooner and wish you had that intimacy beforehand. And so for freshmen, if they can start that now, that's going to be a very helpful thing and a beneficial thing for them. But then the other thing as well is just like plan for the future and get ready for things, because you're going to be in junior or senior year before you know it. And just keep God close in doing that through your plans. Don't plan too much or anything, but get prepared and get ready, because God probably has big things he wants to do with your life. And so just making sure you're close to him and getting geared up for your future.
Mm-hmm. Which I guess it kind of goes with both of y'all, or even things that y'all have talked about, the bit of advice that I would give the freshmen, and that honestly I would give to you guys, in a lesson that I wish I would have learned a lot sooner, is really begin to learn who you are. Because I mean, you talked about, which we have a similar story in that capacity of, I just cared so much what people thought about me. I changed who I was so many times, or I was trying to fit this mold of something I was never created to be. And then I get to really my adult years, and I'm like, I don't know. I remember going into my interview with Pine Cove to be on summer staff, and I watched the same thing when I was interviewing people to be on Pine Cove summer staff. We get to questions about like, hey, what are your weaknesses? What do you want to grow in? And everybody's like, this. and then I say, give me 3 words to describe yourself. And it is dead silent. And it was for me too when I was answering that question. Like, give me 3 strengths about yourself. I'm like, I don't know. And it's not because it's like, oh, this is just weird to talk about. It's like, I don't know. And I think we can put a lot of focus in areas that we want to grow or weaknesses that we have. But I don't think we put nearly enough time into what are our strengths. And that seems so like prideful, but it's really not, because your strengths are how the Lord has wired you and how you learn when you talk about those plans what he could be calling you to do. And I learned different things about who I am every single year, but I really started walking in freedom when I started to learn, okay, how has the Lord wired me? Like, who am I? What are strengths and gifts that he's given me that's going to help me contribute to what he's calling me to do and help contribute to communities and all of those sort of things. And so you guys are well beyond your years in that journey. And I would just say it continues, and to keep doing that. And especially for our freshmen who are listening, hey, if you haven't started that process, you can start it now. You can start learning how the Lord has wired you when you were a toddler. It's such an important discovery and such an important journey to kind of embark on. But I know that y'all are going to do some really big things. And we still have a long time before you graduate, which you're not allowed to do, by the way. I tell every senior class that every year, and they still graduate anyway. But I'm incredibly proud of you too, and proud to see y'all go from just blossom into the men and women that you are, and how you're even leading others to do that. But so thank y'all. Thank y'all for being here and being a part of the roundtable. And thank you as well for tuning in. I want to remind you that registration is open for the Rush Conference. You can go to faithbridge.org/rush. It is awesome. It is my favorite week of the whole year. So make sure you go sign up for that and get all the details there. And then also we're going to be back next Sunday night for another episode of the Pointbreak Roundtable, and it's going to be a great one. So until then, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Sunday night.